we always start talking and then we're like, oh, we should probably hit the record button.
Start recording now.
So welcome back, everybody, to Storytelling on the Plains, where Connor and myself, Irene, serve as hosts to look back at the history of western Nebraska. And we get sidetracked on rabbit trails like we have for the last 40 minutes before we forgot to hit record. But that's all right, because we'll eventually get to the story. Today, I decided we're going to talk about a gentleman with 3 W's, William Wallace White. And I have notes on another William, and I thought about doing an episode called A Couple of Bills, like we did a couple of Freds. Connor's accidentally deleting.
No, I'm not. I'm trying to stop whatever's going on here. Stop this.
What's going on?
I'm making circles, apparently.
Oh.
Lots of circles. Stop it. Stop it with the circles. Okay.
Okay. As you can hear, the space bar.
William Wallace White. That sounds a little Bravehearty.
That's what I thought, and it makes you wonder. Is that
not really? No.
Okay.
I don't know if there was really any connection.
I wasn't thinking connection. I was just thinking they knew of him, so they're like, oh, we're gonna name our kid that. I don't know. I don't know. People didn't keep those kind of records. I can tell you, I was named after a girl my father dated, and my mom thought the name was cool. So, yay me.
I know people who are named after football players, all the way through first and middle and last. They happen to have the last name, and then they follow through like a football player's name. It's like,
yeah.
But it's not terrible. I was named after I think it was Sean Connery from The Highlander.
Oh, no. Connor McLeod.
Connor McLeod, that's
was
right.
not Sean Connery.
It was a Connor from Highlander.
Yeah, it was Connor McLeod.
The movie. I never liked it, so I.
Oh, really?
I was never a Highlander fan.
Don't say that to Paul. It's his favorite movie ever.
I probably shouldn't be saying it to out loud because it's my mom's too and my dad's, and I'm just like, no. I don't know why. I never got into the movie. Nope.
I remember watching the movie. I thought it was okay, neat little story idea, but it wasn't something I would watch over and over and over.
Well, it was named it, and by the time I got to watch it, it was very old. By the time I watched it was an old movie. It was like, this is who I was named after, Connor McLeod. It's like, this is in the 80s.
Yeah.
Not that I don't like 80s movies, but it never worked for me. No.
Christopher Lambert played Connor McLeod. I thought it was a neat idea. The second movie doesn't exist for me, and we never watched the TV series because we thought that kind of broke what the story was supposed to be about.
I don't think I even knew there was a series. I knew I didn't know there was a second movie. I think I just remember the one.
Yeah.
The one Highlander. There can be only one.
Yes. Yeah, they kind of broke that once the movies kept going, and then the TV series, and okay.
Yeah, but that was my first name, and then my middle name, just like my siblings, were named after grandparents.
Okay.
Or relatives,
Okay. My sister was named after my grandma, first and middle name, and then I have a cousin whose middle name is my grandma's first name, and one time my cousin was doing something really stupid. I mean, she was like 9 or 10, but she was just being dumb. And my grandma looked at me and she goes, I don't know where my kids got the idea to name them after me. I just started cracking up laughing. She goes, they picked the wrong ones. And she looked at me and I go, yeah. And then we had a good laugh about it because I pretty much inherited my grandma's personality, sense of humor. We were the only lefties. It just so many things lined up that you would think that I was her daughter, not her granddaughter. And the 2 grandkids named after her were so completely not like her. But I get it. Both of them were the first girls. So I get where that came from. Anyway.
Typed out back as a William Wallace, not that William Wallace White.
Yeah. And I'm just going to call him William. I was very tempted to call him Bill, but I thought, what if he was one of those Williams that went by William or Will,
Will, like he'd kill you if you said Bill.
Yeah, yeah. I worked with a guy named Ted one time at Taco Bell, and I asked him if it was short for anything, and he goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "Well, because Ted is usually short for Theodore." "No, my name is Ted." And he said it really angrily and then went off on a rant. I'm like, dude, you could have just said, "No, my name is Ted. My parents didn't name me Theodore. We're good, we're cool, we'll move on with life." Instead, you spend 10 minutes yelling at me when I literally asked a question for clarification to see if it was something for something else.
Ask for Theodore and you get a TED Talk.
There you go.
That's what you get. It's all your fault.
So before we start, I want to thank the folks who support us and encourage people to keep sending in recommendations. I know we mentioned this last time, but there is a lot of history out here, and I certainly don't know all of it. So please don't ever feel like you can't send a recommendation in, because it might already be on our list, but it might not be. And we're all here to learn, so that's what we're going to do. So today we're just going to jump in and start talking about William. And it might be a little shorter episode than what you're used to, just because there isn't a lot of information. But again, as I was reading...
It wasn't that William Wallace.
Yeah, it wasn't that one. There's not enough for me to write a book about.
Mel Brooks isn't going to make a movie out of this, guys. I'm sorry. It's just not.
It may be a little bit shorter, but I can tell you, while I was reading about this guy, I read about another guy, and he's now on my list to do a story on. So, I mean, that's how it works. You learn about this, that, and the other thing. You're like, ooh, that's cool, that's cool, that's cool. And then suddenly you have too many options, and you sit down at your desk and go, oh my God, which one am I going to pick today? And the only thought that really goes into picking what I'm going to write about, because we do have a lot of notes on a lot of different things, is... I know we've been doing quite a few things in Scottsbluff, so I'm trying. This guy's in Scottsbluff, sorry guys, but I'm trying to look outward again to find some.
And we did kind of agree that we're going to do the Western Panhandle.
Yeah,
and we have.
And it's just that the last few episodes we've been back in Scottsbluff. But if you think about it, we were in alliance quite a bit with Daisy. And then with Robert, Dobby's Frontier Town, and then Dorothy. So we had 5 episodes up in Alliance. So I try not to stick in one area for too long, just because I don't want people to think, oh, it's all about Scottsbluff. It's just Scottsbluff is easier because I live here and the library's here, and the legacy is the Plains Museum.
The museum is being the most important part.
is
here.
Is right here. So the library is about 2 miles from my house, and legacy's around 7. So it's not a long trip to go somewhere. So it's just easier to do those ones, and I try to be mindful of that so we don't stick in Scottsbluff too much. And maybe we'll have to do. See, it's a confusing story. The Beaupre story. That's just long, confusing, true crime stuff that I don't know if I want to even get into it, even though it is part of the history here. But again, that would still be Scottsbluff. So today, we're going to talk about William Wallace White and how he got here, because he was not born in Scottsbluff. William was born on February 17th, 1866, at Adrian, Missouri. Now, I'm not too familiar with Missouri, so I went to see and to look and see where Adrian is located. Honestly, Missouri, I know Kansas City and the Arch. I really don't know much else about Missouri.
Say it slowly, and that's what it is in the summer.
Okay.
That's about all I know.
Yeah.
That's everyone from there told me.
I mean, I've technically been to Missouri because I've been to Worlds of Fun. But and I've been to St. Joe's because everybody stops when you leave Lincoln. You go south to St. Joseph's and you get gas there, and then you continue on to Worlds of Fun. That's literally all I know about Missouri.
I'll take your word for it. I've never been to Missouri, to the best of my knowledge.
Worlds of Fun is a adventure park, like your Six Flags kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And they got a water park there too. And I don't really enjoy either one of them, but I was in college and people actually invited me to go somewhere, so I went. I did a lot of, I'll hold your jacket while you go. I did a lot of that, but that's okay. So Adrian is 55 miles south of Kansas City on I-49. So if you go look at a map of Missouri, just go like a fingernail down, and there it is. It was a small town then, and it remains that way today. I had a quick look on Wikipedia, which only has census data back to 1890, so it's 24 years after William was born. But in 1890, it had 613 people. So really, really small. The 2020 census, the town had 1,730 people. So it looks like William was born in a typical small town America. There were lots of small towns in America that had 500 to 700 people in it, and some of them just never grew. This one has almost 3 times the size, but you're still looking at less than 2,000 people. It's just a small town that never grew, and that's okay too, because there's tons of those all over. So his parents were George M. and Sally Hughes White. His dad was born in 1837 in Knoxville, Tennessee, and his mom was born in 1841 in Kentucky. Again, my initial information comes from Shumway's book, History of Western Nebraska and Its People, and we find that the birth and death dates aren't always accurate. And this is just an issue with Shumway's book, and I don't know if he, wrote the numbers down wrong, if they gave numbers wrong. It's a factor in life going back to that time, because you didn't have birth certificates and that kind of stuff. But I did look at the Find a Grave website, and William's parents' headstone lists his dad was born June 5th, 1938, and his mom was born March 14th, 1840. So, it's a little off. Shumway says his dad was born in 37, and his headstone says 38. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. I mean, for me, it matters when I was born because I got a birth certificate that says you were born on this date. But when you go back to those dates, not everybody remembers. When I remember reading stories about folks, like the 2 former slaves that we did the story on, and Lucy, who was one of the former slaves, she wasn't quite sure of her age. Mm-hmm. And that's because you made a guesstimate.
Not to mention, like, any of the Native Americans.
Yeah.
Before Europeans came down, they wouldn't have used our time system.
No.
So that's not saying they didn't know how old they were.
Yeah.
But how they would translate that out to us would be completely different. It wouldn't be 365 days.
Yeah.
And then all these days this happens, and then that's how it accumulates. I don't actually know how they would get their birthday.
They usually referenced things. So, like, I was born in the year of
like the bad winter.
The bad winter.
Harvest,
yeah.
The good hunting season.
And you might get lucky and, I was born the year that crazy horse died. Okay, so you still got 365 days then. You don't know your exact birth date, but we can narrow it down.
Contrary to pop culture, I've never, ever heard any native say many moons ago. Never heard that in real life. Ever.
No.
I've never heard that. It's like, what does that mean? Many moons ago.
and everything I've read, they would even list, on the, in 4 moons we're going to do this, or 4
Sure,
moons ago. They had a number of
yeah.
moons, but it was never like many as just a guesstimate of months or years.
To tell your own age, yeah.
Yeah.
It was to tell like when the season would happen or when a festival would happen. But yeah, I was born 57 moons ago. What?
Yeah, they wouldn't
so
say
what
that.
does that mean? So
Yeah.
you're what, 10, 5? I don't know.
Yeah. So I kind of lean more towards the headstone being correct, and I just did a proof for my mom's headstone, and I'm sitting there spelling her name like 15 times and looking at the birth and death date to make sure that it's right. So I lean more towards the headstone has the accurate dates. So I'm not going to criticize Shumway too much. And if you've seen that book, it's a huge, honkin' thick book. And he did 3 volumes. And that's a lot of information, and you're bound to get something wrong. I know in the time I was a journalist at the Star-Herald, I did make mistakes from time to time. And we caught almost all of them. So I had written a story about something that happened in 1969, and I wrote 1869, and the copy desk caught it. It happens. You're typing really fast, and you hit the 8 instead of the 9. Whatever. So I'm not going to fault Shumway too much, because the good majority of his information is accurate and correct. It's just the dates get kind of fuzzy, and it's always about the birth dates, not the death dates. And it's because we didn't care.
Oh, well, and I don't, you can put that up to nowadays. I mean, I think if you want to really look at the most of birthday fudges, look at Vietnam, look at Korea, look at World War II, and start looking at the soldier plaques. Because I've heard constantly from vets that, when I was in Vietnam, I was really 16. They said I was 18. And my buddies that died over there, that was the wrong birthday. That was on the headstone.
Yep.
But that's just the way it was, because no one's going to say, well, he was only 16 when he died in Vietnam.
Yep.
Look at his headstone.
Yeah.
They fudge the numbers to get him in. They're going to continue to fudge the numbers if they die.
Yep.
So you'll never know.
Yeah.
So it's common even to this day.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So I lost my place here. I just can't read. So I just want people to remember that unless your birth was written in something like a church record, your birth might not even be recorded. And birth certificates weren't standard until the 20th century. My grandma was born in 22, and we have her original birth certificate. So at least on November 1st, 1922, in New York State, they issued birth certificates. But that's not true of everywhere in the country. There were still places in the country where those weren't listed.
I imagine they did it in New York, too, for the beginnings of border control.
Yeah, the farther the farther north you go in New York State, the more rural it gets. So maybe they didn't do everything. But my grandma was born, downstate enough that she had it recorded. So it really is only, I would say, maybe guaranteed 50s, 60s, although I know my mom has her birth certificate, and her brothers were all born in the 40s, so maybe 40s they really started issuing it, and maybe it was because so many people were underage during World War I and World War II. They were like, hey, we need to keep better records.
It could be.
And so they started issuing them. I don't actually know, but
I would doubt it, just because I don't think that kind of reconcile, like, even to this day, we don't talk about that a lot, so I don't know if that was an actual reason.
Yeah, and I'm
nice
not
to think.
Yes. So I don't know the exact reason why, but when I was born in 1970, it was just standard.
I mean, I had my birth certificate, and I couldn't do certain things in my lifetime without it. I think I needed it to get to college. I believe I needed it. Did I need it for my marriage? I don't know if I needed it for my marriage, like when I actually brought it all into the court to get the marriage certificate.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
I don't remember if I did either. I want to say I did, but I'm not sure.
I did need it when I applied for the military, even though I never ended up joining. I did go up all the way up to MEPS, and they did require that. So you had to do it at the time I was going to join. You had to have your birth certificate.
Yes. And when I was a little kid, late 70s, when I started playing baseball, I had to have my birth certificate because the league went to 12, and when you turned 12, you had to go to the senior league because you were too old to play with the 9-year-olds anymore.
They got serious in New York about their leagues. I don't think I ever had to do that.
And then I when you turn 13, that's your last year you can play. And I remember there being a big hullabaloo because our baseball season went from March until the end of August because we went back to school in September. And I turned 14 on July 5th. And there was a whole, can she play or can't she? Because halfway through the season, she's going to age out, and they ended up letting me play. So
okay, well, that was good. That's interesting. I don't think we cared too much about our baseball teams.
Yeah, they were way too competitive, and I have some trauma related to some of my teammates who it was not a good time that last year I played, and it wasn't fun anymore because
sports can get so brutal. Kids can get so mean.
And so I just decided I wasn't going to play baseball in high school because all those kids played on the high school team. Mm-hmm. And the high school coach told me that I wouldn't be playing on the junior varsity team. I'd be on the varsity team. She was like, "You're good enough, Irene. You don't even have to try out. We want you." And I'm like, "No, I've been playing with these kids since I was 9 years old. I don't want to get beaten up."
Done.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm done.
Jokes.
So that's the history of birth certificates. There you go.
Hope you guys had fun with that.
I'm still leaning with their headstones are correct, so take it for what it is. Anyway, William's parents were considered honored residents of Amsterdam, Missouri, which I think means that they were good people who did good things in town. I honestly don't know. Every search I did online kept returning results for gun permits in Colorado. So I'm literally looking up, what does an honored resident of a state mean? What does an honored state of a city mean? Yeah.
They have gun permits. That's what it comes down to.
But it was specific to Colorado. Like, I made the most generic searches possible, and that kept coming up. So I'm like,
it's
all
very,
right.
very important in Colorado to be an upstanding citizen with a gun permit.
Yeah. So my guess is, just from context, an honored resident, you're usually a good, decent human being if someone's going to refer to you that way. So that's what I assumed. His parents were married on February 14th, 1861, at Sedalia, Missouri. And they had 8 kids. William was the third oldest and the second son. And Shumway did take the time to write some info about his siblings, so we're going to talk about them too. Shumway notes that William's brother Warren was a farmer/banker in Amsterdam, Missouri, and most of the family stayed in Amsterdam. And that's my guess. If one of the kids became a farmer/banker, well, right there you get elevated automatically to some kind of honored status because those are respectable careers at that point in time. Walter, his other brother, was in the automobile business at Carnegie, Caddy County, Oklahoma, and George was in the auto business in Anadarko in the same county in Oklahoma. Since we're not doing people who aren't living in western Nebraska, I didn't look, but there has to be a reason why the 2 brothers ended up in Oklahoma. Whatever opportunities.
They sang a song about it once upon a time.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
Maybe they really like the musical. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? I'm just assuming some kind of good business opportunity.
The musical came into town one day, and they're like, Oklahoma. Yeah. Sounds right on. Yeah, that's exactly where I want to go.
As usual, there's not a lot of information on the sisters, but I did find some. So Sally Ann's obituary information is all about her being a good Christian woman. She had 5 boys and 3 girls, so 8 kids, and she passed away at 81. That's, the thing I found curious about that was several of her kids had the same names as her siblings. So she named her kids after her brothers and sisters.
Which that makes sense.
Yeah.
I've seen that before.
Yeah. And to me, that just signifies that it was probably a kind of a close-knit family, even if not everybody lived in the same towns anymore. I found it curious because you normally have like maybe one child that you name after your brother or sister, but she had several. So anyway, Amanda M. died in Heppner, Morrow County, Oregon at age 40 in 1905. Didn't really find much else about that, and we're a little too early for the flu pandemic, so I can't even make a guess why she died at 40. Bloomer, and he didn't get a middle name. He died in his home, age 24, after being sick for several weeks with malaria. So I found his obituary, and it just said he had been sick for several weeks, and the doctor sat with him for a while, and, he didn't get any better, and he died. It was in Sally Ann's obituary, where it had listed that he had died of malaria. And I guess he was a favored brother because he came up quite a bit. He didn't get a middle name, though, but he did die of malaria at 24, and that kind of sucks. But, even today you could still... 2 years ago, I think they came out with the malaria vaccine?
Was it that soon?
It's been relatively recent. I thought it was before that. I thought it was like when I was in college, but no, I was in Tanzania in 2005, and there was no vaccine. You could take tablets. Ooh, they gave you some really wicked dreams. But they were working on a vaccine then, but it's only recently that it's officially been passed, and they've put it out, and you can get it now.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah. But, back in 1905, late 1800s, you don't have a vaccine. And when you get malaria, it can come back at any time as well. So you might survive it, and it could come back and knock you on your butt later on. It's a very weird thing. Lula Irene passed away at age 85. She has a very cool middle name. She has a little bit of information, and I'd like to do some more research on her because she eventually moved to Scottsbluff, and she's also buried here. So there's got to be more information about her out there, but that'll be a future episode. She had 9 kids. I'm sorry, 9. Dang. Amanda Catherine was 78 when she passed in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So that's 2 boys and a girl that moved to Oklahoma for whatever reason. Ida Lodema passed away at age 74 in Amsterdam, Missouri. And at the time of her death, she had 3 surviving daughters, 17 grandchildren, and 13 great-grandchildren. She had 5 children in all, but 2 of them passed before she did. And given that she lived to 74 in the times, it's not surprising that she lost a couple along the way. So that's William's siblings. Although his father was from Tennessee, his great-grandfather was an early settler in Missouri who accompanied a cattle train from Independence to Santa Fe, New Mexico, in the days when the great herds of buffaloes roamed over the western plains. And for those of you who don't know, it was very, very common to hook up with an outfit, a cattle rancher, whatever, and, they didn't put the cows on a literal train. They walked. And so
it was the train.
Yeah. So the cattle formed a train, but everybody walked. And it took a long time.
Watch Lonesome Dove, if you want to.
Oh God,
if you want an example,
yeah,
of that. If you want an example of what they did, of course that was like the end of it. But
yeah. So William's father moved to Missouri when he was 6 years old. So when William's father was 6 years old, and grew up to own a farm near Amsterdam, where he also worked as a merchant. I've tried to clean this history up a little bit because it kept talking about he, and you had to figure out, is the he William or is the he William's father? And you begin to understand why your teachers drill that in your head, that if it's not clear, just put the person's name in. And even as a journalist, I may interview Connor, and he's the only person I interview for the story. You can't just constantly say he said. You got to intersperse it.
You have to do it,
because people will tend to forget, even if it's just one person, who he is.
Intersperse your proper nouns with your pronouns.
Yes. And in this case, since you're talking about two different men, I would have used the men's names every single time and wouldn't have left it up to chance. So at one time, William's father owned 80 acres of land on a bluff, which eventually became Kansas City, Missouri. I'm assuming he had to sell that land once it became Kansas City, the usual way that a city expands and you sell your land and make a little bit of money. William's life growing up included having a father who also served as the justice of the peace. So your dad's the cop in town. If you're wondering how his mom fits into the picture, well, her father was a native of Kentucky, which is why she was born there, but he was also a minister, and in addition to being a minister, he established the town of Crescent Hill, which changed its name to Adrian, which is where William was born, and he owned farm in Sedalia. So everybody eventually converges on that little area in Missouri, and that's how William got born. His maternal grandfather was also a Mason and belonged to the commandery at Kansas City. Now, I'm not a Mason, so I don't even know what that means, and I really don't want to look up Mason stuff. But I'm guessing if Shumway felt the need to list it, it's probably a high-ranking officer. Otherwise, he would have just said he was a Freemason. Shumway notes that when William's maternal grandfather died, the Knights Templar brought his body to the cemetery on a flat car. And that would have been a flat car on the rail line. My guess is you're only doing that for someone of importance in town. It's not a common thing that was done. And his rank, I guess, was high enough that they wanted to honor him that way. William's father was also a Civil War veteran serving with the Union. One of his uncles was his father's comrade, so the two brothers served in the Union. And two of William's uncles also served in the Confederacy. So when you think of the very, very old TV series, The Blue and the Gray, and I believe Patrick Swayze was in that, it was not uncommon for families and for friends to be on opposite sides.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we were Confederates, my family.
Oh, really? We were Unions. Get out.
I don't know about my mom's, but my dad's definitely. We actually, I was told that we have relations to Ulysses S. Grant. So.
Oh, okay.
So it's like, yeah.
Yeah, we were Northerners through and through all the time.
Sure. Well, and to tell you the truth, probably my mom's side of the family. I think by the time they got to America, the Civil War was either already over with or they just went straight west and didn't care.
Okay.
So I could see that. They're just like, we're from Poland. We're Polish. We don't have a stake in this game.
Yeah, we're just going to keep traveling.
We just want to go someplace and be away from, all the shit that's going on in our own home country. Go west is that way? Okay, we'll go west.
Yeah.
It's not north or south, it's west. Okay, that works for us.
But yeah, it wasn't, I don't want to say it was super common, but it was common enough that it didn't surprise me. And I would have loved to have, been able to talk to and interview those brothers just to see why did you go one way over the other. And, you also have to remember that William's dad was born in Knoxville, Tennessee. And, if you know the history of Tennessee and how everything went down with the Civil War, it's not surprising that people were split with that. And I'm not going to get into Civil War history, but
no, and it is fascinating because there's actually not just people splitting. There were whole church organizations. I think quite a few actually that split and became to this day two different denominations now because of the Civil War.
Yeah,
and it's very interesting to read about.
You got West Virginia from it.
You did. You got the states from it. But
it
was amazing how many churches split, how many congregations split, and whole groups of people.
Yeah, and it's because life is complex and nothing is black and white. And you try and work with it, and I really hope we don't have a bloody Civil War ever again. I would never want to experience that or go through it. Some of the conflicts I see and read about around the world are harrowing to me and devastating, and I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
No, it would be a much different kind of war, because of course during the Civil War America wasn't fully developed. It was really just the east side.
Yes.
Guys kept seeing north and south, but y'all east to us.
Yeah.
Y'all have your own problems out east. It don't matter north or south.
Yeah. So, Anyway, it would have been interesting to be able to hop in a time machine and go back and talk to them, but they probably wouldn't talk to me because I'm a woman. So, whatever.
That's funny.
So this gives you a little...
I'll go back for you.
Okay, I'll give you a list of questions.
There you go.
Or, because we could go back in our magic time machine, we might as well take our cell phones and have little earpieces where I can sit in the other room and talk to you. Be like, Connor, ask him this, and then we could get the story.
Something.
Because that's how time travel works. So this gives you a little taste of the things that William saw and learned about growing up and the kind of atmosphere he grew up in. And I'm going to read a little bit about his education from Shumway. William W. White received his early education training at Adrian and later was graduated from the high school at El Dorado Springs. He was also a student in Butler Academy at Butler, Missouri, and studied law in the office of well-known attorneys. In 1892, he was admitted to the bar at Cheyenne, Wyoming, and in October of the same year to the bar in Nebraska. So he was smart enough to come out here. And
so from there he just kind of kept going
Yep.
went to Wyoming, and realized that sucked, and then went to Nebraska.
His first 2 years of practice was in Cheyenne as a member of a law office force. I did try and look up to see what a law office force is, and I can't really find any information, but reading from context, it seems like it was a bigger law firm, and they were a force
I thought it was
in
just
the
a
area.
typo, and it really just an law office firm, and they just say force.
Yeah, it could be that too. Not sure. He then went to Oklahoma for a time, then to Galesburg, Illinois for 3 years, and in 1903 established his residency in Gearing. And so to me, this says, he's trying to find his place, and he probably got offered jobs in these places. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing he went to Oklahoma because he was like, yeah, Cheyenne sucks. But 2 of his brothers and his sister were in Oklahoma, so I'm guessing maybe he went down there and was like, hey, let me have a hand here, and then found work in Illinois, and then came to Gearing. We don't have more information than that, but a couple of things can be presumed with the data that we do have. In the meanwhile, he found opportunity to make a record for himself as the pioneer newspaperman on Pumpkin Vine Creek, now in Banner County. For 10 years, he served as county attorney for that county, but resided at Gearing, and from 1911 until 1918, at which time he resigned, he was the county attorney of Scottsbluff County. During his time of residence at Pawnee, Oklahoma, he served as chairman of the Board of County Commissioners. Since 1910, he has been local attorney for the Union Pacific Railroad, and he has looked carefully after the interests of this corporation. So he was a railroad attorney. His practice has been of a general nature and has been steady, honorable, and satisfactory financially. For some 10 years, he was associated with Judge O.W. Gardner, who retired in order to attend to his personal interests, and the firm style now is White and Heiss. I want to note two things for folks that can't see what I just read. Pumpkin Vine Creek is just known as Pumpkin Creek today. I did have a look online, but I couldn't find any information about why the name changed, and I did look at some very, very dry water quality research papers and that kind of stuff to see if I could find anything going back long enough to see when it changed, but it didn't. It
just fell off.
Yeah, it's the exact same place. So they originally, I guess, called it Pumpkin Vine Creek, but I've never heard of it referred to as anything other than Pumpkin Creek, and everything I can find, it's Pumpkin Creek. So if you ever hear Pumpkin Vine Creek, this is the same thing. And the quote comes directly from Shumway's book, which was published in, I believe, 1921. I've seen dates of 1920, and I'm never sure which one to go to. And I tend to lean toward 21, and I forget why. I remember I did some research on that, and I settled on 21 for whatever reason. Again, it's a year difference, so let's not quibble about it. We run into the Scottsbluff issue with the county being written as one word here rather than two words, which it would be counted or written today, and county is not capitalized as it is today. So today you would have Scottsbluff County, 3 words, all of them capitalized, because it is a definitive location, so the whole thing gets capitalized. If you said the county, then county does not get capitalized. But a long time ago, county never got capitalized. So it didn't matter what county you lived in, the county was not capitalized, and it is now.
Kids today are having a hard enough time getting through English.
Yeah, just basic English, yet alone
basic English, yeah.
Proper capitalizations. And I don't know when the Scottsbluff versus Scottsbluff was settled. But city is 1 word, county is 2 words in 2026. It's been that way the 20 years I've lived here, almost 20 years. I've lived here 19 and a half. But it used to be completely interchangeable too. There wasn't even a pattern where everything was 1 word. Sometimes the city was 2 words. Sometimes it was Scots with an apostrophe S. So you just know you're reading and hearing the same dang thing. I wish that they had just skettled. I wish they had settled on one way to do it rather than it is today, where the city is 1 word and the county is 2 words.
I think you're the only one bugged by it.
Oh, really? Oh my God, this drives me crazy every time I come across it. Okay.
No one goes after New York. You guys can't decide whether you capitalize the whole damn thing or not, because every time I see New York, it's big old NEWYORK.
Oh, so like
capital letters.
All of it's capitalized?
Yeah, big old New York. And then there's other times it's like spelled properly New York.
They're doing it wrong if it's all capital letters.
And then, of course, you guys just get rid of it altogether and just go, NY, yeah. Put it on your T-shirts. I love NY.
Yeah.
And then everyone just thinks it's the city now.
Yes. That's the thing that I hate too. People are like, I've been to New York. Where at? New York's a giant state, and they're just like, oh, I don't know. We saw some Broadway plays. I'm like, oh, you were in Manhattan, New York City.
Won't make that mistake here.
Yeah.
Scottsbluff is Scottsbluff. Yep. It's just Scottsbluff.
Yep.
You New Yorkers, on the other hand, man, you just go all over the town.
Yeah. And that thing bothers me too, because when people hear I'm from New York, they automatically assume the city, and I'm like, no, I didn't even go to New York City till I was 20 years old.
Yeah, there's a lot of New York. Just go.
Yeah,
explore.
And it's absolutely beautiful upstate. Go visit the state. So if we skip back a little bit, William married Alice D. Everett, who lived in Cheyenne, Wyoming. So that's how he met her. He's there working as a lawyer, met this lady, eventually got married to her. It's not surprising to me that he met her there. They had 3 daughters, and I'm going to quote from Shumway again, who mentioned they had 4 accomplished daughters. Okay? So bear with me here for a moment. Ruth, who is an instructor in the high school at Gearing. Grace, who is a teacher in the public schools of Scottsbluff. Carol, who is a graduate of the high school class of 1919, and Elizabeth, who is yet in school. I'm assuming she's still in elementary or high school. And I think Shumway honestly only listed more of what they were doing and that they had occupations, because William didn't have any boys. He just had girls. So, you have to list them then. The Find a Grave website does not list Elizabeth, so I wondered if she had passed at a young age, since she was not even in school yet, or since she was, because Shumway uses this weird language, who is yet in school. So does he mean that she's not in school, or is she in school, maybe elementary school, high school? Could you have put down Elizabeth, who is 12, or something like that, to just make your language clearer?
Today on Storytelling on the Plains.
Sorry.
Irene's really getting on one today. Yeah. Scottsbluff and Shumway. It's like, damn.
Yeah, I didn't mean to do this, but it confused me enough. I tried to look around, so I did a little bit of digging. The 1920 census, Carol and Elizabeth are listed as living at home. Ruth got married in 1920 and likely moved out of the house before the census was done. And so that makes me guess Ruth got married in January or February, because the census is usually done in March. So that just makes me guess when she got married. I did try and go look. I couldn't find the exact date, other than she got married in 1920. And I couldn't find the marriage date of Grace either. She was the eldest, and it's likely she was already married and living with her husband by the time the 1920 census was done. So you only had Carol and Elizabeth listed as living with their mom and dad. So I went back to the 1910 census, and all 4 girls were listed living at home at the time. So when Shumway wrote his book, I'm guessing at the oldest, Elizabeth would have been at least 10 years old. She could have been a little older. I'm not sure. I couldn't find any dates, because I can't find birth or death records for her either, but she was listed in the census. Mm-hmm. So that's the best I could do with one daughter, and Shumway noted that all 4 of them were alive, but every place else I can only find 3. Mm-hmm. But since she was listed in the census, she was definitely there for a while.
Or the census taker assumed that she was there.
Yeah.
And the family was definitely not playing along.
Yeah.
But if they just had a doll that looked like a human child, and the census taker just insisted it was real, and the family just went with it. It's like, yeah, sure. It's Elizabeth.
Yeah.
That's what we call her. She doesn't talk or move much. She's sick. But, you can put that down. Sure.
Yeah. And I wanted to look further in the future, but I don't have the money to subscribe to genealogy websites to get the census information and that kind of stuff to see if she was still at home in the 1930 census. And thinking about it, in another 10 years, she probably would have been married and out of the home anyway, so it's not going to help me.
I'm trying to imagine what it'd be like in the early 1900s being a census taker. Could you just imagine like putzing out there from middle of nowhere to middle of nowhere just to have farmers maybe not shoot you just so you can get their names?
Yeah.
And I said, I don't know. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
It sounds like a real... I actually applied to be a census taker.
Really?
A few years ago. I got a reply back, but by then I had already had a job, so I couldn't. But they were going through, the interviewer guy was kind of going through everything. And that's one of the questions he asked me. It's like, how are you against like people who are just pissed? People are like, just do not want to talk to you, and I had to give an answer and stuff. So yeah, it's interesting. But I couldn't imagine being out like back then, where no phones, no way to contact them, no way to really say, hey, I'm coming. It just showed up.
I mean, I don't even know if they call today. I think they just show up.
Yeah, they don't.
They just show up.
You usually know when they're about, because, well, for one, I always get, like, job offers around that time. But usually, you'll see them around. Okay. Or someone will say it and then say, oh, okay, their census is now. Yeah. But you're right, they don't call. Yeah. They'll leave you a note, won't they?
I think so. You. Yeah. I know we get the forms in the mail. Please fill out and return by X date. And then, if they don't get the form back, like a month or two later, the census takers start showing up. I don't know if that's the way it was, back in the early.
I imagine they didn't usually mail just yet, not right away.
Yeah, I would guess they just showed up at the house
and like physical takers. I would think it would be important at that time for the government to really know how many people are coming in and not to rely off of the mail, because it didn't have the U.S. mail service yet, as far as I know. So that was a thing.
They had it. It just wasn't as good.
It wasn't efficient. It wasn't streamlined. I guess that's what I meant. It wasn't a streamlined thing. So I wouldn't have done it personally.
So the family did go to church. And it's noted that all the women in the household were members of the Episcopal Church. And it's just a little curious thing that Shumway chose to write it that way, because I would assume William went to church too. But he made a point of saying that the family went to church and that all the women in the household were members of the Episcopal Church. So it makes me wonder, did William not believe in God, but he went to church anyway and just, I don't want to be a member of the church? I don't know.
Maybe Shumway was a Presbyterian. I don't know.
I don't know.
No, these girls are Episcopal. Screw them.
During World War I, William and his family were involved in the war effort, and Shumway wrote, Mrs. White and her daughters are members of the Episcopal Church, and during the long periods of war needs, Mr. White and his family were active in the various movements, their efforts never ceasing as long as there was urgent demand. That's just a big old flowery way of saying, he had girls, so he's not going to get drafted into a war because he has a wife and girls at home, and they found ways to help the war effort.
Yeah.
They couldn't go.
They did their part, as what they used to say, do your part.
Yeah. And Shumway just decided to use all this weird flowery crap that he didn't need to use. At least you wouldn't use it today. You wouldn't leave it at that either. As a reporter, you would write what they were doing, even if it was just a basic list of
stacking tires, shining boots.
Yeah. You would explain what that meant, and I think that's something that Shumway he was a dude of his times, and it wasn't really a thing that was done at the time to list things like that. But today, as a reporter, if you leave that out, you're a bad reporter because you left out what they were doing. So William was also a Mason, just like his granddad, in town, and belonged to the Knights of Pythias and the Modern Woodmen. Shumway also wrote he was a pronounced Republican. So to me, a pronounced Republican is basically people knew he was a Republican.
Which in 1905 was a Democrat, but whatever.
Yeah, yeah. So it's, I would assume if you dump me back into that time period, Irene was a pronounced atheist. Because if you ask me about it, I'll talk to you about it. We'll have a conversation. I'm not going to hide who I am, what I stand for. And I'm guessing,
Basically, when William walked into a bar, everybody everybody knew. It's
yeah.
like, crap, we better finish our drinks and leave. William's going to go on a rant again about the Republic. Jeez. William, every time. Pronounced Republican.
Yeah. It's, again, I'm sure it meant something different back then, and language changes. And I'm not going to complain about language right now because I already did a lot. I know we're reading into it a bit, but it seems that William paid attention as a child and saw his fathers and uncles had served in the Civil War. His father was active in his community to the point that his mother and father were deemed honorable citizens, and he brought that belief of helping others with him to Scottsbluff, not just during the war effort, but in his memberships in the service clubs that he was in and in everyday life. I can't say much about the Knights of Pythias other than they were some kind of service club, but my family were members of Woodmen of the World.
Yeah.
And that's who the Modern Woodmen were. They've slightly changed names over the years, but they're always the Woodmen.
Yeah,
and
my grandfather was a Rotarian.
Yeah, and it was just a different type of service club in the types of things that you did, like maybe Rotarians did pancake feeds and the Woodmen did, collecting old clothes for the needy or, whatever.
Like
they're all service clubs. They're just different clubs to be in and participate in life.
And back then, that's kind of what, when people say they were active in their society, that's, you in a lot of ways didn't have a choice. I mean, because if you were a loner or a bum loner, you were probably kicked out pretty fast of these small kind of towns. Mm-hmm. They just didn't want anything to do with you. There was, we had the word for them like hobos and vagabonds, and we had those words, and nobody wanted them in their towns. There's actually several laws that were introduced to kick them out. To, if you wanted to be accepted into a town, any small town, really between east and west, you had to actively participate. Yeah. You had to go to church. You had to go to the local whatever club. You needed to be seen maybe even at the bars now and then or something. But you couldn't just be a loner. If you were a loner, especially if you're like a single male, absolutely didn't want nothing to do with you.
Yep. Yeah. And it just seems like, he was a lawyer and he had the time to do those kind of things, and he was involved in a couple of them. It just seemed like he was just a normal everyday dude that helped to build Scottsbluff.
I guess that's kind of was my point. It's just like he was just one of those fellow citizens that decided that either by the way his upbringing and also by like no choice put on by society, you have to make it work, and you have to work for the community. And I don't think it was for his own personal fame or anything.
No, it was just what you did.
From everybody.
Yes.
Everybody's expected to do that.
Yep. And so you can see some of this is evidenced in a quote from Shumway. He wrote that William was an attorney whose professional reputation extends all over western Nebraska, has been a resident of Gearing for a number of years, but has, at the same time, filled numerous offices of public responsibility in other sections. He is recognized as an able, forceful lawyer. Years ago was the pioneer newspaper man of Banner County, Nebraska, and yet finds time to give attention to large and valuable farming interests. So it just seems like he was involved in a lot of stuff, and that's the kind of guy he He was. And there's a lot of people that are like that are just like, well, that needs to be done, so what can I do to help do it? So I don't know. That's why I found him interesting, because like you said, Connor, you know, he was in one or two clubs, but it seems like he was the kind of person that was just like, oh, what, you need help over here? I'll help you.
Yeah.
And he didn't do it with fanfare or expect pats on the back or kudos or anything. He just did it. It's what needed to be done. It was what was expected, so he did it. It seems to me like William and his family were pretty chill and just found ways to give back to others, and I'm sure there's ways that they helped that no one will ever know about. And to me, those are the best ways of helping. If you are helping to elevate yourself, then you're not really helping. And it doesn't seem like he was that kind of guy. He definitely had the cash, being a lawyer and having several farm interests. But for me, it was nice to see someone who was rich and successful, who also made sure to help others, because we don't see that a lot in the world in 2026. And this guy was definitely wealthy. He probably could have seen and done and gone places. But he was just making his part of the world better. And those are the kind of people that I like to tell the stories of. I don't give a crap about the billionaire who did this, that, and the other thing, because you have $1 billion, dude. Go help him make the world better. And this guy made his part of the world just a little bit better than it was before he came here. So anyway, that was why he was interesting to me.
That was interesting.
That's all we have on William Wallace White. Hopefully you enjoyed learning about this dude who lived 100 years ago.
And if not, go watch Braveheart.
and pretend that's a real story.
Yeah, you know, very, very accurate. I'm pretty sure it happened exactly that way.
Oh, yes.
Sure.
Yeah. They word for word, note for note, that's exactly how it happened. Anyway, come back next week and we'll have another story for you. For now, I'm Irene.
And I'm Connor.
And this is Storytelling on the Plains.